make sure you get involved because we're about to get stuck into the reverse ladder. So 18 West Coast, 17 Hawthorn, 16 the Roos, 15 Richmond, 14 Fremantle, 13 St Kilda, 12 the Dogs, 11 the D's. Which surprises you the most so far? Which do you disagree with the most?
I'm not sure. Hawthorn, I think, might be a lot better than 17th.
Yep.
I shouldn't say a lot better. I think they'll be better than 17th. Dogs and D's and St Kilda, they're the teams that you could say, if you threw the names up in the air and they landed in 6th, 7th and 8th,
yep,
I'd probably go, yeah, that could probably work. But if they landed 10th, 11th, 12th, I'd go, yeah, that could probably work as well.
That is what we keep saying, and that's what I found when I tried to do this little exercise. So we're up to position number 10 and in 10th, and I guess the streak will continue. The old Twitter account will carry on and live on, and however many thousands of days it's been since Essendon won a final will continue because it is the Bombers. In 10th, 11 and 12 last year, 89.7%. So that percentage was really, really low. Surprised me a little bit. Essendon, most excited to see Nate Caddy, their top 10 draft pick. There's just something about the young man that I like. He's got a bit of Jack Revolt about him, not just the hair because it's blonde, but the build similar. He's an in-between size, so he's a little bit undersized for a key forward. In actual fact, he's not that dissimilar to a Kyle Langford size, but he seems like Jack Revolt was so good, Moons, at jumping early into packs and clearing space by jumping early and jumping on a pack and moving bodies out of the road. This guy looks like he's got some similar traits. He looks creative, and I recall just a bit of audio from the draft where he was just, you could see how much he wanted to make Brad Scott believe, how excited he was and how keen he was to get stuck in here. I'm ready to go today. Let's go out and train. So Nate Caddy for me is the thing I'm most excited about from an Essendon perspective. The sure thing, and I think we can probably put this guy into this category for 2 or 3 years, but what goes up must come down. Jake Stringer will go up and then he'll go down. And that'll just be the way it is for the season. He'll
give you a ride, Jakey, won't he?
The odd game. And unfortunately now, though, Moons, it is only the odd game where he jumps out of the ground. So last season, he kicked 21 goals, 23 from 17 games. So he was inaccurate and he was only just better than 1 goal a game. He only kicked 3 or more goals twice in a game last year. And he only kicked 4 goals in his past 6 games of 2023, and he also only managed more than 20 possessions once in the season. So the impact games were really, really, really low last year. The hope for me, Harrison Jones, I hope the injury woes are behind him. He's had some really worrying back stress fracture issues, as have a couple of other Essendon youngsters. So I hope he gets a look at AFL footy. He's got plenty of things to work on, but he does have a skill that young forwards just die to have, and that's being able to jump into a pack and take a contested mark. He doesn't predict the game that well yet. He doesn't read where a ball carrier is and where he needs you to be to allow him to be able to kick the footy to him. But hopefully, as he's been injured or whilst he's been injured, he's been on the computer or the tablet just watching endless amounts of footy and upskilling himself in that space. My worry is actually what they are getting with Ben Mackay. So I don't really care about what he gets paid. Now, I'm never going to counter players' pockets. What someone offers you is what you should sign for, right?
Yep.
That's completely to the side. But he is being brought in to command the defence. For a long time, it's been an undersized Laverde, an undersized Michael Hurley, an undersized Jordan Ridley, who's had to play on these guys who are 105 kilos and 6'6". Ben Mackay is that size. Can he play on them? Does he have the athleticism to play on them? Can he play at ground level against these guys? Because a lot of these key forwards, Danaher and Curnow and these guys, Jeremy Cameron, they are electric at ground level as well. Can he play on them? Can he also maintain the ability to take intercept marks, but also beat some of these guys? Because, like it or not, he is being paid to do so, but he's been brought in. Aside from the money, he's been identified and brought in to do that. The jury for me is out on whether he can do it. The X's and O's, I would lean back into the speed. So ball movement to me, they look like a ball movement team. They look like a team that need to make life easier for their forwards. Peter Wright is as good a bargain buy as we've seen in the past 5 or so years. His form, when he hasn't been injured, has been unbelievable.
Love him.
When you measure it up and marry it up for what they gave up for him. Langford had an unbelievable 2023. But as I said, Jake Stringer's form wavers, and it's probably going to waver more and more and more. Jones is unproven, but they do have guys like Nick Martin, who I love, Zach Merritt. They've got Durham, they've got Parrish, they've got McGrath. Those guys can run and gun. And their home ground is, yes, they play a few games at Marvel, at the MCG. The home ground is Marvel, where it's perfect conditions week in, week out. So run and gun. Run and gun. Do what you are built to do, and hopefully you can win enough games to make the finals. I don't think they will. I had them above the team I've got in ninth, but I flipped them around. I was doing both teams, and I thought, nah, there's no way that team can be below Essendon. So Essendon are 10th. What says you?
I don't disagree with you. My thing with Essendon is, when are they going to stand up as a playing group and go, let's be honest, they're the butt of jokes.
Yep.
On Twitter, they haven't played finals in this many days and all of that. This is one of the biggest clubs in the country, but it hasn't been a great club for a long time.
Yeah.
I hope people understand what I'm trying to say there.
Yeah.
And I'm talking mostly what's happened off field, a few things, but on field, they have not performed. And I'm looking at some guys here. I'll throw some names, like guys who have played over 100 games, well over 100 games for this footy club, who haven't seen a finals game yet. You know, Langford, Laverde, McGrath, Merritt, Parrish, Redmond, Stringer, all of these guys. I mean, Stringer obviously come from the Bulldogs, but it's about time you go, I'm sick of just being an AFL player.
Yeah.
I want to be a finals player.
Yeah.
Like there's a big difference between I'm on a list and I get paid and I play 23 games or 22 games, and then at the start of September I go on a holiday. That's a shit career. Sorry. That's shit. I want to play finals footy, and this club now needs to stand up and say, I want to play finals footy. And those boys, I hope they have driven this group so hard this preseason. I hope they've been belting each other on the training track. I hope there's two blokes who had a bit of a scuffle. Just give us something, because this club is too good of a club to be on the back of jokes.
Yeah.
About not
and it's
playing
been too
finals.
long. It's been too
Way
long.
too long.
Yeah.
Like it's actually embarrassing. Like you're too good of a club for this. And these players are the ones, and they've got some really good kids coming through who you named and all of those. But it's time that group there that I talked about, the 100 plus, 150 to 200 with merit, mate, just take the bull by the horns, boys. And you've brought in some good players. You brought in Dersma, who I think is really good. Gresham, who is really good. Goldstein's going to be a nice little just added bonus there for you.
Yeah, so
in the rush
insurance
stock.
on Draper as well. If he's hit.
And I love Draper, and I think if he gets going, he's the heart and soul. He's the energising bunny of this footy club. And then Mackay, can you be, and again, don't worry about the money, but can you be a big, ruthless, key defender who's going to take the number one key forward and give them hell?
Yeah. Can he be?
Can this club give the opposition hell? Finally,
I'm not saying he's not, but I just. I don't think I ever played on Ben Mackay, but you know the best defenders like Wiedering just he won't let you run where you want to run. He won't bump you all game, but when the ball is in the area and when he knows that you're a chance to make a move to get the ball, that's when he'll hit you. That's when he'll make life hard on you. So he does it, and Harris Andrews is the same. Harris Andrews will run alongside you pretty much for 100 minutes, but for the 20 minutes of the game and those small patches where the ball is on its way, that's when he's physical. And that's when you need to be physical. You don't need to be worrying about bashing people all over the ground. But can Mackay be ruthless enough to do that? Because they need that from him. Not because they're paying him a lot of money, because they actually need that from him.
The other one for me, and you mentioned Jakey. I love Jakey. I got to spend a bit of time with him down at the Bulldogs. great person. Love him, but hasn't lived up to what he should be delivering week in and week out. Now, that might be body reasons or whatever it is. I hope Zach Merritt grabbed him at the start on day one by the scuff of the neck and said, this is going to be your greatest preseason. We need you. You are the barometer of our club, of our forward line. It's on you, Jake. And put it on Jake.
Yeah. Put
it on Jakey Stringer to be the best player that he can be. The player that we see glimpses of.
Yeah.
I want to see that consistent glimpse. It's bloody exciting. It's unbelievable, actually.
It was barely a glimpse last year.
So, Jakey, I'll put it on you, Jakey. Be as fit as you can, mate, because when you are on, the competition's better.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like it really is.
Yeah. And they grow a leg. They grow a leg when he does that, and Draper's the other one, as you mentioned. Those are the two guys who, Zach Merritt's a fantastic player. Darcy Parish is a great player, but every team has a couple, and the great teams have more than a couple who really ignite the team and spiritually get the team going. And Stringer's one, and Draper is certainly another. So, Bombers fans, do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you see a little bit more of blue skies than we perhaps do for your Bombers? In ninth, it is one of the teams over there in South Australia.
Power to roll, come on, Port Adelaide aggression. We are the power from Port. It's
all
more
right,
than
there
a
it
sport.
is. It's not the Crows. It's a little switcheroo. So Adelaide missed the top 8 last year, and
There's
Port
still hatred there. I can hear it in your voice.
No. I never had any hatred, or I don't even really have any dislike toward Port Adelaide. A boy from Swan Hill in country Victoria. Don't know anything about that rivalry. But I don't have Port Adelaide in the top 8. They did go 17-6 last year. They were unbelievably impressive last year until the finals began. A little bit like the Cowboys, I guess you could say. Now, most excited to see, we do this by category, of course. Most excited to see, I'm really pumped to see a former teammate of mine, a very brief teammate of mine, Asava Radigalia, team up with Aaliyah down back. Now, I know Brandon Zerk-Thatcher's in the mix as well, but Radigalia and Aaliyah could really form a pretty dynamic intercepting key defensive duo. Both are really adept at marking the footy. I guess Aaliyah does it by ideally dropping off a small forward or a medium-sized forward and doing it, but he can play on key forwards. But Asava, he's been brought in to be the man. So he is going to take the big dog, and he picked up that role so much quicker than I thought he would have. When it was decided by the Cats he was going to go down back, I thought, well, this is going to take some time, both physically and the demands of playing, large game time as a key defender, but his understanding of angles and leading lanes, he picked it up really, really quick. So excited to see those two go about it. The sure thing for me will be the Port Adelaide ball winners will continue to be a force. I'm not sure there's a more dynamic group when it comes to Connor Rozee, who's the new captain, Zach Butters and Jason Horne-Francis. I think they're the most agile, explosive, and hard to tackle group of on-ballers in the competition. Rosee's footwork around the ball, so he doesn't overpower people. You just can't grab him in a phone box. He's quite incredible. Butters is a perfect blend of elusiveness but toughness as well. And Horne-Francis is just pure power.
He's a bull.
As he continues to pick up the nuances of the game, bodywork around stoppage, he'll just get better and better. He'll continue also to add, very similar in the way that Patrick Dangerfield did, the understanding of how to get an easy possession, because he does really have to work hard for his disposals at the moment. The hope for me, and I hope you're on board with me here, I hope Port Adelaide say to Ollie Lord, you're the man. You are the man. I loved what I saw from Ollie Lord in a small sample size, but he's a 21-year-old who's already got a bag of 4 goals in a qualifying final, which he did last year up in Brisbane. When everyone else and everything else around him was failing, he looked good, and he kicked a couple off, at ground level. He's competitive. I saw him take it to, I think it was Stephen May, and he really sort of physically was able to stand up and do his thing against Stephen May. He didn't dominate him by any stretch of the imagination, but he's 6'6", he's athletic, he's agile, and he looks like he's up for the fight. So what he does next year from a statistical point of view, I don't know. But I hope that Charlie Dixon's been such a beacon for them for a long time. I think if it's 50-50, and I know there's an allegiance to Dixon, I'd play this young guy because I think he's got a massive future. for them, and I think he's going to be capable of doing great things for them. The worry for me, now I spoke about this in the two words that we love, trade radio. Ollie Wines, I thought he might have been on the move in the off-season because I thought it would have fit him. I thought it would have fit the team that he was going to, and I thought it would have fit Port Adelaide because I just mentioned Rosie, Butters, Horne-Francis, and Willem Drew looks to be preferred in there to be that run-with guy as well.
Fourth in the BNF.
So I don't know where Ollie Wines fits. I know you've got to have a large group of midfielders, but when he's not in there and those guys are in there, where is he? He's not forward. He's not back. He's not really on a wing.
Not a wing.
So is he on the bench? I don't know. Is he a sub? I'm not sure what it looks like for him. So it'll be interesting to follow his and plot his chart as the season goes along. X's and O's or a tactical move. The balance of the forward line, and this is where you can take over, Moon. So Dixon's a question mark for me. His best footy is still good. Lord, I love. Marshall had a good season, probably let himself down a little bit in the finals, but he's not the only key forward to do that. And then Mitch Georgiades will probably get back at some point as well, and we all love what he can do. Horne-Francis spent time as a deep forward. I liked what Francis Evans was able to do in short stints as well. So Willa Rioli's down there as well. But from a tools perspective, they've probably got 4 that they want to play, but you can only really play 3. Some teams only want to play 2.
We've got 3 and a ruck, who's a part-time ruckman as well. Look,
and I haven't mentioned Finlayson as well.
Yeah, well, that's so. The forward line for me is a concern. So Charlie, I've got a question mark here, 2 question marks, because his body just doesn't allow him to play the crash and bash footy that we've seen him play for so long. He still is the barometer of the forward line when he's up and going. So if he's fit and firing, you've got to play him, and he must play. But is he going to be able to play because of his body? Finlayson, a question mark. Again, he's not a number 1. But he's actually taken on that role as that forward/ruckman and does it quite well. Marshall, I think, grew last year into a really good forward, but had a bad final series. But you put your hand up for that one. Thank you.
Yep.
Rioli's really good down there. Miss Georgiades, what's he going to do? Ollie Lord. Yeah, so they've got some question marks on how that looks. Down back, I love Radaglia. Now, I saw Radaglia play in the VFL for Geelong a couple of years ago. It was one of his first games when they threw him down back. And I thought to myself then, this bloke's going to be, he's got it. He's got it straight away. He's an intercept marker. He's still learning the position. So, yes, he gives up goals at times. And there will be times when he'll give up, 3 or 4 goals because he's still trying to learn the position. But what we've seen in that short amount of time, I actually believe he's got an All-Australian jumper next to his name at some stage. Throw him and Alira together, outstanding. Houston, McKenzie, Bergman, their defence is really strong. If you're talking about Ollie Wines, and Ollie Wines now is maybe the 4th or 5th on ball, I think that is amazing for their midfield. So Rosie, Horne-Francis, Butters, Drew you throw in there as well. I mean,
does he fit? Because Boak's still...
Well, I think Boak's the one that's going to give you a handful of games.
Yep. He'll be the sub a lot.
Sub a lot. He'll come in. He's there for his experience because he's a superhuman and just a great person to have around a footy club. So when you've got that experience, and they're probably playing him a hell of a lot less than they had been over the years.
Games or...
So you just keep him around the club to help Rosie as captain, to bring along Jason Horne-Francis. So I love that move, but he's not going to play a massive, massive role, I wouldn't have thought. And so Ollie is the question mark, but a fully fit Ollie Wines, who is at the top of his game, well, he's a Brownlow medalist. So
not that long ago.
Yeah, so if they can get him going again with that young midfield, then you throw in Soldo into the ruck, and I think they brought in young Sweet
Jordan
as well.
Sweet, yep.
Yeah, I think what they've given us over the years is so much potential, and then they've let us down at the end of the year. And I think we've got to the point now of, I think we've seen enough to know, are you good enough to actually give us what we think you could give us?
They'll have to battle a little bit with the and I remember this. We were the same when we lost the grand final. The thought process for them, they've had a lot of finals failures, great regular seasons. They'll have to battle week to week to still be able to say, we're playing good footy, we're winning games, not be like, well, none of this matters until we get to the finals and get over the hump. Now, that is true. What they do during the season, we'll all only judge them on the finals, but it's a long, hard road and a long, hard slog if you only judge yourself at the end of the year and you just basically wipe away wins and say, oh, that's great, we're expected to do that.
What I always say about particularly interstate teams and good ones, you've got that huge home ground advantage. I mean, you're playing 11 games at home, almost 12 because you're playing, obviously, Adelaide there twice as well. So that's a lot of time at home. It's a lot of games where you think, okay, we just say you've got 11 home games at Adelaide Oval. You should pencil in 9, minimum 9. All of a sudden, you're halfway to a top 4 finish.
Yeah.
So it's a huge advantage for the really good interstate teams. That's why playing down Geelong's a huge advantage. 9 games down there. You win 8 or 9 of those, you've almost got a top 4 finish.
Yeah, and they've got gather round as well.
Yeah, exactly
these days.
right.
So an extra one. So Power fans, let us know what you think. And we're into the finalists, the top 8. And for the first time in the club's history, I'm thinking this team will be playing finals footy.
Gold Coast Suns, we play to win the flag for you. Fight till we hold up the flag.
The mighty Gold Coast Suns. The Gold Coast Suns. Yes, Jared Healy, that's what they're called, the Gold Coast Suns.
Still one of the great moments on TV. And to see, for those who haven't seen it, just have a look and just watch Anthony Hudson's childish behaviour. Anyway.
Unbelievable. So the Suns. What are we most excited to see? For me, now there is an obvious, the new system and the new way they go about it with the new coach, but I wanted to dig a little bit deeper than that. And I have identified a couple of guys down back, a couple of young guys. Mac Andrews one, and a blonde bombshell, Bodie Hewland is the other. These two guys, now Andrew joined with pick 5 in the 2021 draft, national draft. Probably picked as a ruckman. He's about 202, 203 centimetres, playing as an intercept defender, if you don't mind. And Hewland arrived by the highly controversial Gold Coast Suns Academy. Hewland's real tough. He looks like one of those 6'2" defenders who can play on anyone. A little bit of Josh Gibson about him, a little bit of one of those really versatile guys who can play taller than he is and go against guys who may or may not weigh more than he does. We won't know anymore. And Andrew, he's had his issues, right? He's had some significant off-field issues. He's got himself into trouble a couple of times. But he's 6'7". He's got dash, he's got dare, and he takes the game on. He averaged 2.4 intercept marks per game last year, so good. But for a young player, that's very good. And he also averaged almost 4 spoils per game. So he's impacting aerial contests behind the ball. His upside is gigantic. So I'm excited to see those two guys mix in with two very, very fine key defenders in Sam Collins and Charlie Ballard. They've got a really nice group down back. The sure thing for me is they'll start with a bang. The momentum, because they pretty much always do, Gold Coast. They always start well and then they taper and then the wheels start to fall off from there. But they've got a really nice start to the season. So opening round 0, they start with Richmond up there on the Gold Coast.
That's set up well, isn't it?
Oh, hasn't it? You'd expect them to win that game. Then they've got Adelaide, the Crows up there on the Gold Coast as well. Tougher game, but it's at home. The Dogs in Ballarat, winnable. We don't know what the Dogs will do. The Giants in Adelaide for gather round, and then the Hawks back in Queensland. So they've got plenty of games at home to start the season. So I think they'll start with a bang. The hope for me is that this young talent time arrives with a bang. So Jake Rogers can help with the midfield group. Jed Walter up front. He's a key forward, so he might take time, but he might also arrive with a bang. And then you've got Graham and Reid who can play a part somewhere along the line as well. So hopefully that young talent can arrive because, and this is my big worry, the load year in and year out falls on Rowell, Anderson, Miller and Witts around the ball. There's no depth around the footy for Gold Coast. So these midfielders, these starting 4 mids, they play massive game time. So the best midfielders in the competition are playing between 70 and 80% game time. These guys are playing 85, sometimes up in the 90s when it comes to game time. So we need to see some more depth built around the footy for the Gold Coast because 7 or 8 the 7 or 8 that Collingwood can throw at you, and you can reel off 7 or 8 Collingwood mids in a heartbeat, versus Gold Coast 4 or 5, just won't get it done. The 7 or 8 will win time and time again. From an X's and O's point of view, Metricon Stadium's not a small stadium. It's a very good place to play footy. It's 161 by 134. It's a relatively wide ground, so the Suns need to use the dimensions to their advantage a bit more. So when they've got the footy, you've got to make it longer and you've got to make it wider. That's what coaches will say. When we've got the ball, make it as big as it possibly can be, and when we don't have the ball, make it small in defence. Because, now, I don't expect to get a million calls on this, but maybe you can answer it for me. If there is a Suns fan out there with the answer, 1300 736 736, you might win a Signet Boost power bank or a round of golf. Who are the great kicks on the Gold Coast squad? Not Lukosius, because he plays ahead of the footy. I'm talking about the creative guys on the Gold Coast list. Who are the great kicks?
I'm going through the names right now.
It's
a very
hard.
good question.
It's hard.
You haven't got that beautiful Bontempelli midfielding kick, Dacos halfback.
We just went through Port. You got Houston and Farrell in the back half, who are great kicks, who are genuinely great kicks. Who have Gold Coast got?
And you look at Dim, I mean, that's really what he's had. He had Hooley for years.
Setting it up. Yeah.
all of
Vlosten's
those
a good
kind
kick.
of guys.
He hasn't really got guys yet that are great kicks. The mids that they've got aren't great kicks. Rao's more of a contested possession.
Crush and bash, yep.
You know, Miller's a solid kick. Anderson's a good kick, but I wouldn't say he's an outstanding kick. So I think that's a real area for them to grow and find some guys who can really kick the footy. Now, a lot of times those who are great kicks give up a little bit in different areas, but I think that's something they really lack.
Look, it is. But going through their midfield, as you spoke about, I mean, you have a look at the guys that we've been waiting on to pop.
Yeah.
Lukosius popped last year.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. 39 goals, and he's only going to get better and better as that smart, crafty centre-half, half-forward. You've also got Ben King. Just like Max, this is a guy that should finish his career 500-600+ goals. Super, super talent. Can his body hold up?
Yeah.
If they get a full season out of him and Lukosius, and you throw in guys like Casbolt there just to help.
Yep.
But
until Walter
comes along.
arrives.
So if Walter is playing and Casbolt isn't,
Yep.
that is fantastic signs for the Gold Coast Suns. Now, this Walter kid, now I've got family up on the Gold Coast and a nephew who played alongside him as a junior and said this kid is, he's everything that we're talking about and more. So hopefully for the Gold Coast Suns, he comes along pretty quickly. But as you said, he is just a kid, so let's not put that pressure on him. But through their midfield, as you said, Anderson was absolutely fantastic, best and fairest winner. Grew to the young talent that we thought. He tried on the half-back line, half-forward line. He and Lukosius just thrown around for years. They finally settled on a position. Rao, we hope, just gets his body right and gets another full season out of himself. And Took Miller's the one for me. I love Took. I think everyone loves Took. I mean, just the way he plays, the way he goes about it. He's just an unbelievable leader. Hard as a cat's head. All of those type of things that you want to say about a player. You got to love him. And their back line's solid. Yeah. So I'm actually looking for these guys to actually play finals football as well. Dimmer's going to play a brand of football that I think is clearly a premiership brand, coming in from what he did at Richmond. I suspect they'll play a quicker brand of football, just like they do with Richmond. Just get the ball forward, surge the ball forward. You've got King and Lukosius and Casbolt up there who are going to give you a mark or a contest. Get the ball to them as quickly as you can, and if not, then at ground level, then we go to work.
Yeah.
That's how I see them playing a little bit this year.
Position number 7. I don't know if they've got one of the best songs in the AFL. Let's hear it.
Well, there's a big, big sound from the west of the town. It's the sound of the mighty Giants. Feel
The
shaking.
GWS Giants. Now, we know they went on a fantastic run. It looked shaky early last year for Adam Kingsley in particular. He was stressed. Of course, everyone knows about the stress ball that he was given, but their fortunes almost changed the minute he went down to the boundary line.
And you know what? I was at the game when he went down there, and I saw a completely different team. I was working for Fox, 20 metres away from their bench, and I'm just sorry to cut you off, but what he was doing is every time a player would come off, arm around him, a little bit of a chat, sit down next to the bench with them, have a talk, pat him on the bum as they'd run back on, all of those type of things. It changed everything.
It did, and we saw what was to happen afterward. They went on a run and absolutely tore it up and got very, very close to another grand final appearance. So 13-10 last year, but we know they were a better team than that, particularly when it counted. Most excited to see. For me, I just want to know, is there more? Is there more to come? So, first year for Kingsley, is there more? Typically, we'd like to think another year, another 12 months, another off-season together. So the first time a coach and a somewhat new coaching group comes in, Moons, you're spending a lot of time explaining what you want, explaining how you want things to be done, explaining how you want to play. Well, the guys all know it this time around. So this is what we want to do. Okay, let's go. Bang, let's go and do it. So is there more? Could big Kieran Briggs go to another level? We saw him come from absolutely nowhere and take over as one of the premier rucks in the competition. So is there more for him? Is there more for Brown as a contest-winning sort of hybrid-sized forward? Is there more from Jack Buckley, who Phil Davis says is a top 10 key defender in the AFL? Is there more from Connor Iden as a play-on-anyone type of defender? Is there more from Bedford and Brent Daniels as a really dynamic 1-2 punch? So if there is, then clearly, on the back of what they did last year, there are exciting things in store for the Giants. The sure thing, well, I think the key cogs will lead the way again. So I'm talking about Toby Green. I'm talking about Stephen Coniglio. I'm talking about Josh Kelly and Lockie Whitfield off halfback. He was, I think he was the under-the-radar best player in the competition over the past 8 or 10 weeks last year, including finals. He was 30-plus every week. He was left and right foot. Not many were going near him for some strange reason, but he can just run and create. He's got a great role. He sets up behind the ball for the Giants, often as the extra, and he's a weapon back there. So Coniglio's resurgence was unbelievable. You can't speak any more highly of him. Toby Green clearly thrives on leadership and responsibility and bringing people with him. And I think Josh Kelly deserves a lot of love too, Moons, because he was the cream, but last year he was the cake. He was part of the cake. He wasn't that finishing touch. He was the one creating. And when he gets the ball 25-plus times, 30-plus times, great things happen for them. So he deserves plenty of love as well. And I think those guys will continue to play well. I hope next year that Aaron Cadman, there aren't many times where Aaron Cadman doesn't demand a spot in the 22 over Lockie Keefe. Now, Lockie Keefe's done great things for them, but he's 33. He's played some amazing roles. He's been as a backup forward, backup ruck, backup key defender. He's done everything. 111 games, only the 18 goals. Hopefully Cadman, now we're not expecting him to kick 50 or 40 or maybe even 30. He might just be one goal a game. But hopefully he can take that role from Keefe. But if he does, therefore, who is your backup ruck? I wonder, Moons, whether Jake Riccardi can play as a key forward/ruck. He's 198 and 100-plus kilos, or so we're led to believe. He looks like he's more than 100 kilos, if you ask me. But he's 6'6", close enough to 100 kgs. He should be able to do it. The worry for me is, I wonder, did they play above themselves, or was that really them for a long period of time? So, we've seen teams get on a run and make a run, but was the prelim final the aberration? Was it the exception, or was it where they deserve to be? They do have a few around that 30-year-old group, and particularly Coniglio's 30, Green's 30, Ward's 33. Josh Kelly and Jesse Hogan are getting toward 30, so certainly not in the category of Geelong with all their over 30s, but they've got a few around that area. The X's and O's, can they rediscover? His name popped up in trade period a lot, but can Nick Haynes' best form be rediscovered? Clearly, Harry Himmelberg's been preferred as that hybrid defender, that intercept defender and that kicker out of the back half. So Haynes is going to have to sort of reinvent himself in a way. He was out of the side a lot last year. He came on as a sub at different stages, but can he be a winger, start on the wing and be that guy who rolls back and helps create an extra and frees up Himmelberg and frees up Whitfield? I think he's good enough, but can he do it? Because certainly 2023 was not his best season. So that's where I've got the Giants, position number 7. When I was going through all of that, I thought, well, it's more likely than not, if they're to finish higher or lower, I'd say they'll probably finish higher than 7th. But right here, right now, 7th will do for me.
Like it. When I think at the start of the year, at the start of last season, from what I've heard, I even think the coach said to the players, "We're going to struggle in the first part of the year because you're still trying to learn what I want, and it's going to take a little bit of time. But if it does click, or when it clicks, we're going to go."
Yep.
And it's exactly what happened. It was just like to a T, and you're right. I thought by the end of the year, I thought he should have been, or maybe he was, I can't remember now, coach of the year. He probably goes to the premiership coach, and it probably should, let's be honest. But I thought he was just unbelievable. He was outstanding the way that he changed from what he looked like was the stress head or the angry coach in the box, punching the table, yelling, screaming, to then all of a sudden the coolest, calmest man at the ground. And you could see it just vibrate straight through the team, and it was incredible. When you talk about their best players, and any team, when they've got their absolute best players having a great season, you're going to do well. So their best and fairest was Toby Green, Cornelio, Tom Green, Whitfield, and Kelly. That was their top five. Probably their top five players. And then you throw in Sam Taylor, finished 8th. So there's your best players, 6 best players, all finishing well in the top 8 of the best and fairest. So when that happens, generally you're going to have a really nice season as well.
I never even mentioned Tom Green, and
he's one of the biggest. He might be the biggest bull in the competition,
and he might be becoming everyone's favourite player that doesn't play for their team. He just plays the game the right way. He looks like a bit of a lad. He has a bit of fun. I saw some of his social media work through the finals where he was having a laugh and taking on the opposition. So we love his work.
And I feel like Josh Kelly was the one whose game probably saw the benefit of Tom Green more than anybody, because Green is now the bull. I'm getting it. I'm handling it. All of a sudden, Josh Kelly, who can be very much an inside player, but he also now just became this outstanding, particularly by the end of the season, outstanding outside player, finishing, getting his 30 plus, still getting his inside ball contested footy, but being on the run, getting on the end of Tom Green handballs, and then finishing for goal. I mean, that's where he became such a superstar by the end of the year, Kelly. So, look, I think if they can hold up their forward line with Hogan, who I thought was easily had the best year of his career, if he can keep kicking goals, if Riccardi can grow, and, of course, if the young man can come through as well and maybe do a few things.
Just cameos.
Just cameos. That's all you need from him at the moment. And as you said, do you throw Jake Riccardi into the ruck? They're saying here 192 max off the SMS. He's a lot taller than that.
Yeah,
I'm 194, 95, and he's taller than me.
Yeah, he seems bigger than that, Brett. Jake Riccardi. If he's not 198 and he's not 192, he's closer to 198 than he is 192.
Cadman's going to be the one. Again, we don't like putting pressure on young guys, and particularly young forwards, or it's just something you don't do. But if he is, we were talking about, if you go early in the draft, there's obviously extreme talent there. And if they do pop, and they pop early, I mean, geez, you just look back and go, this is amazing.
And I remember I was working at a couple of Giants games last year, and I just got caught watching Jesse Hogan a lot. And he played a game last year where he hardly touched it. He had 8 disposals and kicked a goal. But I don't think I've seen a forward work harder to just always want to be in front, always want to meet the ball at its highest point, always want to compete on the ball. And it probably made me think, and I never really had given it much thought, but, the commentary around, occasional negative body language, looking at the ground, I think it just means so much to him that sometimes he can't hide it because he's so disappointed in either how he's performing or what's going on around him. And he wants it to succeed and happen for him and for them so much that occasionally it does look like, he's sulking, but he's not sulking. He's actually just really caught up in wanting to help the team do well.
I think the Jesse Hogan Melbourne thought they were going to get, I think Giants have finally got him. He's
28, perfect time
he's
for
a mature, went through some off-field troubles or whatever it may have been. He's come out the other side. He's worked his backside off. He had to work to get a contract.
Yeah.
They didn't say, come over here for a 3-year, 4-year deal. I think it was pretty much on a 1-year deal. He had to work his backside. He had to prove to him. He came out, kicked nearly 50 goals last year, 49 goals he kicked last year. I think he'll kick 50 plus. And along with Riccardi,
he works really well with Toby as well because he's such a hard worker. I was full of admiration watching him a couple of times last year. So that's the Giants.
Can I just
Fans.
say, don't
yes.
rest on Cornelio. What he did last year.
Yes, yeah,
coming
yeah,
back.
yeah.
The captaincy role didn't fit him well. All of a sudden, a lot of pressure on him. Took that away from him, and he was back to being a star.
It is time for position number 6. We're getting to the pointy end of the reverse ladder predictor for 2024. And in position number 6 was a team that went from Premier to September holidays, and it was the Kitty Cats.
The greatest team of all, we are Geelong, we're always on the ball.
All right, the Cats, clearly, I've got them bouncing back somewhat on the back of a 10, 12 and 1 season where their percentage was strong, almost 113, but 10 wins, 12 losses and a draw. First time they've had a ledger like that for quite some time, Moons. Disappointing season.
Yeah, it was. I mean, they started the year off poorly. I think they lost, God, I can't even remember off the top of my head. They lost the first handful of games.
0-3.
Yes, handful of games. And then went on a bit of a run. But
never really threatened.
No, never really
got
did.
going.
On the back of when they went on that run, it's amazing because Hawkins was a big one. I think missed a lot of pre-season, and I think when you are playing catch up, all of a sudden that's when I reckon it was about round 8 and 9. That's when the injuries came.
Yeah,
and they just piled on, and they just weren't. Yeah, at the end of the day, they just weren't good enough.
They just weren't good enough. So 10, 12 and 1 on the back of last season. I've got them finishing in 6th. Most excited to see a guy that I really admired the way he went about it last year. He came over from Greater Western Sydney to the Cats. Tanner Bruin. I reckon he's got all the makings. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be in the All-Australian team in the next year or maybe the year after that or maybe at all, but he's certainly got all the makings of one of those, those really reliable, consistent, 24 to 27 possession type midfielders. He's elusive in the contest. He's got really fast feet. He's developing as a nice kick on both sides of his body, and he's up for the fight. He loves the contest. He's a strong enough body. He's a good tackler. So he was thrown around a lot last year. Early in the year, he was on the bench. He was playing 55%, 58% game time. He was out on the wing. He was at half back. He was at half forward. He was in the middle. So I thought there were some times in the second half of the year where he really shone through and showed Cats fans that he'll be a long-term AFL midfielder for the next decade or so. The sure thing, I think there'll be a return to the homely comforts down there at GMHBA Stadium. Now, of course, the stadium will hold about 40,000, I think, as of round 1. The stands are basically done.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm expecting, unlike last season, I'm expecting that Cardinia Park will again be that hard to / maybe impossible place
Fortress.
to win for opposition teams. The hope for me is Jack Bowes. Now, I didn't know much about him when he arrived from Gold Coast, but he showed some signs. Now, he was one that he had a calf injury in the preseason. He had an injury after about 5 or 6 weeks as well. But he's got a little bit of – he's got some of Mitch Duncan's traits about him. He's flexible. Mm-hmm. He's not a penetrating kick. He's not a Bailey Dale type kick, but he's got great vision, and he can hit those in between type of kicks, the 25 to 30 metre passes that get in between the defence. So I reckon he can set up off half back. Sometimes if the opposition are putting a lot of time into Tom Stewart, he can be the one that frees up and be's a little bit creative for them. So hopefully he can play that role, and hopefully his body holds up. The worry has to be the old guys, right? So it's been spoken about for maybe 5 years, since Tom Hawkins was 30.
Yes.
Well, guess what? He's about to be 36 midway through the season. So the worry is that, say, 50% of these guys, so Tom Hawkins, 36 in July, Zach Tui, 34 already, Patrick Dangerfield, 34 in April, Mitch Duncan, 33 in June, Reece Stanley's already 33, Mark Blitzarves is 33 in March, Cam Guthrie's 32 in August. So what happens if half of those guys, you get to round 17, you think, well, half those guys won't be playing next year. Yeah. What happens? That's the concern for the Cats, and it has to be, and it's, I'm sure, one thing they've been balancing for quite some time. So they're trying to defy Father Time, but as we know, eventually it catches up to everyone. From an X's and O's point of view, a tactical point of view, I'm interested to see what the evolution of the forward line looks like away from Tom Hawkins. So Tom will play 12, 15, 22 games, who knows? Whatever it looks like, there'll need to be an evolution away from him. So Jeremy Cameron will need to be the focal point. And he has been able to roam, with Hawkins there, because Hawkins is that anchor, that guy that's always inside 50. And Cameron's been able to go and attend some centre bounces and go up and play around the ball and get behind the ball. But can he do that without Hawkins, next year and the year after and the year after? He might need to be 30 to 70 metres from goal at all times. So what will that look like? Will Tyson Stengel be able to get back to his All-Australian form? And then who fits around him? Ollie Henry, I thought, had a really underrated season last year, kicked 35-odd goals. I thought he was really consistent last year, kicking a couple of weeks. So it will be the one thing for me to watch, what it looks like and how you actually go about building your forward line when Tom Hawkins is not there, whilst he still is there. So that's going to be a really difficult balance for whoever's coaching the forward. I think it's James Rowley who's coaching the forward line, who's come back across from the Crows. So that's what it looks like for the Cats. Plenty of questions and certainly plenty of reasons why they might not jump back up into the top 8. But I think with some returning bodies, Cam Guthrie will be hugely key in all of that. And some more wins than certainly they had last year down at GMHBA Stadium. I think they can finish 6th.
Look, I don't know where they'll go. I think they're still a finals contender. I don't think they're a premiership contender. But I still think they can make finals on the back of, as you said, playing games down at Kardinia Park. And we say this every year, and I've experienced it. We've both experienced it. It really is. It just adds wins to the column, to the columnist. It really does. You get your 9 games down there, and I've always said you generally get your 8 wins. Some years even 9, and then you're already halfway to a top 4 finish.
That's right.
So it really is a massive advantage for Geelong. The injuries last year were a huge one, as we said, about round 8 or 9, whatever it was. They started to get some huge injuries. When Jeremy Cameron got knocked out,
yeah, the Cats got knocked out.
The Cats got knocked out. I mean, Jezza was having an outstanding year. I don't think the club was having an outstanding year, but Jeremy Cameron was. Unfortunately, ran into Rowan's shoulder or head or whatever it was, and he was almost done for the year. Came out. I think he came better by the end of the year, but it did take him a long time. I have got no doubt, and this is just from an outside looking in, not talking to anybody. I thought they walked into last season probably not ready because the older guys got their premiership, and this is a premiership that those boys had been fighting for 10 years. And the young guys got a premiership, and I just, from the outside looking at it, said, I'm not sure they hit the ground running come pre-season, and that's why they got off to the 0-3 start, and that's why they started to get injuries. But I think all that aside now, you get everyone back, you get Cam Guthrie back, who is one of the most important players that they've got on the list. You've got Tommy Hawkins, who's probably pushing for a games record, and he will kick over 800 goals by the end of this year. All of those things will come into play. So I think they still are a chance, and a very good chance, to play finals. I'm just not sure they're there to play in a grand final. As far as the youth goes, or the older guys going out, well, they did that a little bit last year with, obviously, as you said, Bowes, Bruin, and Ollie Henry, who kicked 41 goals.
41,
that's an outstanding
fantastic
year.
Yep.
Unfortunately for Ollie, he missed out on a premiership.
Yeah.
But, but they've already started looking for the future. So I think they're starting to do that. They have done that, and they'll continue to do that because there will be an exodus of senior players over the next 24 months. Well,
I looked at, now I was there in a working capacity last year, and I was having a look at their list last night, and there were so many guys. I was like, I don't know who that is. Now, you recognise the name from the draft or from whatever, but I thought, gee, there's been a quick turnover of 7 or 8 already that from last year, and some of those that went out were young players as well, so guys who were delisted or didn't quite make the grade. So not all older guys that went out, but Isaac Smith and a few others have moved along. Jonathan Segler move along. So it will be interesting to see how they go. If you were you're the forward coach of the Cats. Now, no doubt Tom Hawkins will play an important role, and Chris, you know what Chris Scott's like. He'll think that if things go right, they can win it all. He said that in 22, and a lot of people probably scoffed, and they won it all. So he'll take that view going into the season. How do you go about playing your best forward line and your best forward structure to win each week, which obviously includes Tom Hawkins being a focal point in that, but also trying to get ready for the following season or two when you don't have Tom Hawkins?
I think the hardest one for them is obviously when he does go, who's going to replace him? So you've got Jeremy Cameron there who will become clearly the number one, and probably is the number one now. But Hawkins goes out. Okay, so you've got Jack Henry, who we know can play forward or back. We talk about De Koning. He always started. He was a young forward, both of them, young forwards, ruck. They went down back, or he's gone down back and had an outstanding career so far. Premiership players, key backman. Is he the guy? I mean, there's been plenty of players who go down back and get games under their belt and all of those type of things, and actually push forward and become a really good forward. So he is one for mine in the years going forward that just don't be surprised if he does get pushed. Now, it's very hard to say that now because you look at him as a key defender and you think, well, you're not going to move him from there, and that's totally understandable. But there's those options, but again, they might just have to go and try and find somebody.